The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to The John Lebang Show.
Greetings, my friends. Welcome to another John Lebang Show. Thank you for tuning in. Well, so much has happened since our last excursion into the show. Of course, we have the continuing, never-ending impeachment that we'll get to here shortly. We have the passing of Kobe Bryant. We'll be talking about that at some point. Harvey Weinstein, the coronavirus. There's a lot in the news. So when I was putting together the show notes, and I was thinking, which way do I want to go? Because everything has its importance, but people are actually more interested in things that really aren't that important, i.e. the Kobe Bryant death. Sure, it was tragic that the helicopter went down, but as the show progresses, we'll share our thoughts on that, many other subjects. But maybe to begin the show, I wanted to talk about the American people, my friends, my family, a whole lot of people, and their apathy. Not only towards what's important, because they're too busy watching Netflix or going to this thing or going to that thing, because having fun in life is the most important thing, keeping themselves occupied and not dealing with serious subjects, unlike what we do here on the show. We have a lot of fun, but we're in a very difficult time in history, and it's to the point where if we don't get rid of this apathy towards all the important issues, we're not going to have a country anymore. The future of this country is going to be, well, it's at stake at the moment. So when I was going over the show notes and I'm thinking, what do I begin the night with? Because obviously people are so tired of the impeachment, and I can tell you myself, I am sick to death that it is continuing to go on. And it looks like, at least for the foreseeable future, it's going to continue. Because for whatever reason, even though the evidence clearly shows the president was in the right by checking into corruption inside the Ukraine, I mean, Pam Bondi, she was one of the presenters of the president's case. Well, on Monday, she unleashed the entire set of evidence against Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and what happened inside the Ukraine. Just that evidence alone provided by Pam Bondi and the Trump team should have been enough for the senators to just say, you know what, this is a sham. Let's acquit the president and move on. But we're not going to have that. And thanks to the malpractice media, who has poisoned the entire process along with the Democrats. We've got linguini-spined Republicans again, as we always do. These linguini-spined Republicans are considering bringing in additional witnesses, i.e. Hunter Biden, and of course John Bolton, who has recently been writing a book and is due to have it out sometime in March. And that was a recent revelation that came out as the Trump team, just coincidentally, as the Trump team was presenting a devastating defense that was shattering, that was nuking the entire Democrat narrative on impeachment. John Bolton excerpts come out from his book, because it's not out yet. New York Times, I believe, released, leaked, had documents leaked to them. And now, well, we have that to contend, and the linguini-spined Republicans over there are wavering. And the news media, who has been just appalling in their coverage of the impeachment trial. But let's break this down slowly for you. We had a headline on the Drudge Report, it's probably still there, saying McConnell doesn't have the votes to block witnesses. Well, we're still a few days away from them having a vote on if they're going to bring in additional witnesses. Because we have a couple days of senators now asking questions both of the House managers and of Trump's defense team. And until that is completed, that process is over, they're not going to vote on witnesses. Remember the big deal? Oh, we're putting the witnesses at the end in the media, the Democrats were complaining about that. That's unfair. We should hear witnesses from the beginning. Well, they brought witnesses in during the House part of the impeachment. And they chose not to bring in Bolton and other people. Then, with their condescending nature, coming in and thinking that they can boss around the Senate, which should be another reason you senators out there should be saying, no, we're done with you Democrats. You had your chance in the House. You didn't provide a good enough case, and the Trump team has completely nuked your case. But that's not what we're getting. We're going to hear these 2 days of questioning, and then on Friday they'll have the vote, and the linguini-spined Republicans will probably, unfortunately, vote for more witnesses. Which is fine, because that's what they did during the Clinton trial, and then they would vote on each individual witness. That should be a lot easier to wipe out. So they can vote to have more witnesses, but then they have to vote on each individual witness if they want to bring them in. So we're going to have days and days and days, maybe 2 or 3 days of that going on after they vote. After they vote to maybe hear witnesses. Because that's all this effort is going to be. That's all this vote. When it comes time to vote for witnesses, they're going to vote, okay, we're open to hearing more witnesses. Then each side is going to present witnesses that they want to bring in. Then both sides are going to vote for those individual witnesses. And we'll see what happens from there. But the mainstream malpractice media is already telling you McConnell doesn't have enough votes to block witnesses. People don't understand the process. The malpractice media is not explaining the process, and as the coverage has bore out, it's a very one-sided, biased coverage because they covered a great many hours of the Democrat presentation last week. You remember that? We covered it here. It was extremely boring. It went on for many hours, and that they continued to repeat things over and over and over and over. Yet when the Trumpster gets his defense team on, the first day he's on a Saturday, which nobody was watching. And in fact, I'm surprised the Republicans and the Trump team agreed to that. But whatever. On Monday, they presented an even stronger case against the Democrats, which, of course, wasn't covered very well by the malpractice media. By then, the people were tuned out of the impeachment because they had already had enough. Seems like a plan, actually. Seems like that's how the establishment wanted this all to go. So unless something changes, and I don't think it will, it's not going to be until Friday till they even vote. Now get this, listen carefully, till they even vote on voting on witnesses. In other words, they have to have a vote process here. They have to have a vote to go, okay, do we want more witnesses? Then if they do vote in favor of having more witnesses, then both sides are going to present witnesses not as part of the trial, but as part of saying, hey, we want this witness. Then they're going to vote on it. Speaking of voting, I am very, very concerned that there's a conflict of interest with at least four senators, the four that are running for president. I brought this up on Facebook when I got an ad from the Bernie campaign. And I was like, well, since you're forcing me to see your ad, Mr. Sanders, I'm going to comment. And I believe, as an American citizen, there's a conflict of interest between four senators that are running for president. Why should they be able to eliminate through impeachment, through vote of impeachment? Why should they have a vote for that if that is their direct political rival that they're trying to defeat in the primaries? Now, isn't that what they were complaining about when Trump made the phone call to the Ukraine and Biden's name was brought up? In fact, nobody has talked about that it's not Joe Biden that was brought up. It was just Biden. So is it possible that the president was inferring that they should check into Hunter Biden? But besides that, if that is a wrongdoing of some sort, if that's impeachable, then, because it's a conflict of interest, because he's looking out for himself, then why should the four Democrats that are running for president be allowed to vote to take out their opposition before they get a chance to debate him? See, there's a lot of shim-shams going on right now. And so we'll get back to this after the break because we're running up against it. Why are they allowed to vote to get rid of the president before they get to face him? Yet the president cannot check on corruption from somebody that might be from their party. Well, you go ahead and answer that yourself. We've got to take a quick timeout. Don't go anywhere. more coming your way right here on the John Lebang Show. Hey, Uncle Shady, where are they going?
Hey, you, get back here. The John Lebang Show will be right back.
Are you in need of commercial or residential window cleaning? Do you need your office cleaned? Maybe custodial work? How about some gutter cleaning? If you do, then call Pane in the Glass. For a beautiful shine that's crystal clear, call Pane and the Glass. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass. You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
It's better than an eyeliner convention.
Now, I know many of you don't want to get into this impeachment anymore. John, just move on. Because the American public has pretty much moved on from this. Only the diehards and the people covering this are really paying attention. But unfortunately, as I see it, the malpractice media is, again, only presenting one side of the argument. And they're leaving out, why didn't they cover Pam Bondi's presentation? Because that was devastating against the Bidens, and it proves without a shadow of a doubt that there was a smoking gun there, that the president was correct in investigating the Bidens. You get a lot of people who say, well, he didn't go through the proper channels. Well, since we had Strzok and Page over at the FBI, Comey, many different moles inside of his own White House, leaking different information in an attempt to damage the guy, well, I would hold a private investigation myself. And Giuliani is within his rights to find out information in defense of his client, who happens to be the president. I mean, how many people out there complaining about Giuliani, but not realizing that the president has to be represented? Or don't you want him to have representation? You don't want a fair process because for whatever reason, you don't like Donald Trump. And you want him removed no matter how damaging it is to the country, no matter how damaging it is to the Constitution and anything related from that. You, who want him removed solely because you don't like him, and the Bernie thing I was talking to you in the first segment, all I did was say, hey, Bernie, the 4 people running for president on the Democrat side should not be allowed to vote, should recuse themselves if they're not hypocrites. If they are not hypocrites, they need to recuse themselves from the vote. But that would mean the Democrats would lose 4 votes, and you can't have that. No matter how corrupt that side of the thing is. The Democrats are allowed to be corrupt, but the linguini-spined Republicans, no, they can't be corrupt. Trump can't do things that on the surface looks to like he was investigating corruption, which was one of his stalwart, his pillars of his campaign. Corruption. He was going to take it out, get rid of the swamp. So why do you think the swamp is fighting back? And why do you think these linguini-spined Republicans are considering bringing in, let me change that, prolonging the trial? Because it's not just Democrats that are corrupt here. You've got plenty of Republicans that also have their fingers in these little deals that make these politicians who aren't worth 2 cents rich. And nobody wants to judge corruption on that. Something I said just a few shows ago. How can anybody be so mad that they want to get rid of Trump because he's corrupted the government so bad, yet people who have been there for 10, 20, 30 years are not corrupt? Are you kidding me? Especially the ones that have somehow made fortunes while they've been in office. So don't give me that crap. I said months ago, we'll get rid of Donald Trump if we get rid of all the career politicians. That's cool with me. Talk about cleaning out the government and getting rid of the swamp. I'm fine with that. And don't forget, people, that the voters who chose Donald Trump, and he won in an overwhelming landslide of electoral votes, okay? Most of the country went his way. That's because Hillary was a crook. We don't want crooks here. Even the most apathetic American doesn't want a corrupt government. The only ones that fight for corruption are the people who want corruption. When you're corrupting something, you definitely don't want to be caught. And if you're making boatloads of money, as we saw with Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, and his family throughout his political career, these people have gotten rich just by having Daddy Biden plugs himself, Smiley Joe, run as a senator and as the vice president. And it's okay. And this comment I made on the Bernie post, because it was an ad, actually, getting me to, he wants my vote. You're not going to get my vote, Bernie. You're not going to get my vote. But again, we had a Bernie troll this time, attack me, calling me an idiot, because I said 4 senators should recuse themselves. How is that not corruption? How is that not a corrupted move that Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, and the rest of them get to eliminate their opposition, get to vote on eliminating their opposition before they even get to debate him? And that's because they know they can't win. They know the American people put anybody up against Trump is not going to defeat Trump. The American people don't want Trump removed. They may want more witnesses and more discovery. But you know what that discovery is going to prove? It's not going to prove Donald Trump was doing anything nefarious. It's going to show how damaging the Democrats have, or to the Democrats. Let's put it that way. It's going to be so damaging to them, yet the malpractice media is not going to cover it, because they're on the side of the Democrats. And I'm sorry that you don't like to hear that. You only hate Fox News because you think that's a Republican forum. Well, I'm telling you, I've been listening to Fox, and outside of 4 or 5 fairly decent shows that actually try to stay centered, they're not so pro-Trump either. In fact, the entire media apparatus as a whole, along with the Democrat Party, along with many factions inside the Republican Party, are scared to death of Trump because it looks like he's actually rooting out corruption. The impeachment is just another in a long line of bamboozles on the American people perpetrated on them. Let's not forget that the whole Russian thing has been debunked by the Mueller report. That was supposed to be an independent counsel. See, the Mueller report was supposed to knock Trump out, and they couldn't do it because there's nothing there. And I know many of you would like to see Trump gone, but why? You Bernie people, Trump is really no different than Bernie outside of political perspective. Bernie and Trump are pretty much outsiders. And Trump may be more of an outsider than Bernie is, because old Bernie caucuses with the Democrats. He tries to be independent, but he really caucuses with the Democrats. He just happens to be on the fringe of that. And you Bernie supporters, don't you remember that the Democrat Party ripped him off in the last election? See, I think Bernie supporters and Trump supporters aren't much different outside of their political views. They're getting behind the guy who's technically the outsider in the party. And in fact, anybody on the Bernie side out there that might be listening, wouldn't you want that discussion between Trump and Bernie and let the country decide which way to go? Either way, Bernie's going to root out the Republican corruption. Trump is probably going to root out all the corruption if he gets a chance. If you believe that, because again, this could be a giant hoax that even Trump is involved with, because sometimes I'm sitting here wondering, how did you let that happen? How did it get this far? I almost think that Trump wanted to go to impeachment. Maybe he wants to use that to expose the corruption inside the government, because as we are seeing with the Pam Bondi presentation at the impeachment trials, it was devastating against Biden and his son and his family. Devastated. Now, you may not want to accept that. And it's unfortunate, because I thought those people on the left were open-minded. That's the problem. You're open-minded and you don't think. You don't critically think about things. You get stuff shoved in your brain and you just put the cap back on. Ooh, now I have something to talk about. And it's unfortunate, because we have a problem with apathy in this country and then pure partisan stupidity. Now, you got to understand that the level of corruption that's being exposed on the Democrat side is on a colossal level. On the other hand, after hearing both sides presenting their arguments, there's absolutely no reason to continue this impeachment. Only to drag it out, only to rip the country further apart. And maybe that's the whole game. To rip the country apart because they voted for Donald Trump, and, well, we can't have that as the establishment. Now, on Monday, the president's lawyers laid out a case that wasted the entire Democrat narrative. The president, and they proved it, at least from my point of view, they proved the president had a case to go and check out what kind of corruption the Bidens were doing. The connections, the corruptions, and guess what? The ties the Obama administration have to all this. Because as Smiley Joe says, when he's threatening the Ukraine to withhold $1 billion, go ask the president if we can't do that. So obviously the president, Obama, that is, was very involved in the corruption, from my point of view. Now, the Dems are fighting hard because they're all involved, and the linguini-spined Republicans that are also involved are playing this little game that we need more witnesses. Nobody wants to get to the heart of this. They want to just drag it out. We should move on from this impeachment, this sham impeachment, this impeachment that has been nothing but a political, what's the word I'm looking for? A political angle to take out the president, because there is no other way that they can defeat him. So they have to defeat him before he even gets on the ballot, because they want to remove him from the ballot as well. I'll tell you what, folks, if for some reason Trump is impeached, I think we should start a write-in campaign. Not that I'm a Trump supporter, but I know there's a bunch of BS happening right now inside the government, and they're trying to hide something. And that's what this impeachment's about. We'll be right back.
Don't move a muscle.
The John Lebang Show will be right back.
With lots of fun and excitement. Yes!
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is your one-stop shop for tuxedos and men's quality suits. We go the extra mile to make sure your tux or suit is the perfect fit. Our huge selection is second to none in the state.
Looking good.
Outstanding customer service.
And we're located on Dix Toledo in Southgate. Call today, 734-285-3253.
Jim's Tuxedo and Menswear is the place to be.
Yeah. Thanks for coming to Jim's Tuxedos and Menswear.
You know I had to come to the best.
That's right.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look him up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
Now let's talk about the traitor and the warmonger, John Bolton. You see, he was fired from Trump, and now he's coming out with a book. Sometime in, March, I think, and some excerpts were leaked to the Times. Ooh. Notice this is very much how the Kavanaugh thing went, if you can remember back. See, most people forget. Their memories are like a week old, and then that's it. And it's erased. But the banger doesn't forget that stuff. And this is exactly what happened during the Kavanaugh hearing. Blasey Ford was that version of it. Now we have John Bolton, a man disgruntled because Trump brings him in and all he wanted to do was warmonger, and well, that didn't go well with Trump. Trump, for his attack on al-Baghdadi and the Soleimani, whatever the Iranian general was, those were pinpoint strikes. Those were not protracted military actions as we've been, stuck with from the Obama administration and the Bush administration. Obama is far bigger of a warmonger than Trump ever will be. That bore out pretty quick. Obama wins a peace prize, and what does he do? He then goes out and takes out Libya. Then he decides Syria's next, following the same course, by the way, that the Bush team had laid out before him. You start as a independent commentator who has no dog in this fight. No dog at all. You got to wonder what was going on with Obama. Why did he follow the same course of action as the Bush administration laid out? Toppling governments. They did it differently, but they did it. Bush did it more directly. Obama did it indirectly. And he completely failed in Syria. That's because, depends on your perspective, he either let ISIS grow or we assisted ISIS. And I know, oh boy, that will make a lot of people angry, especially the Obama supporters. But let's not forget that Obama admitted in a press conference that they were training ISIL forces in Anbar province, which is in Iraq. That is undisputed because even the White House transcripts admit that. But that all flew past you. I remember when I reported that, I had people telling me that even though I've used the video of it, and I repeated the section many times where he said, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces in Anbar province. I remember that to the letter. Even though there was video of that, people didn't believe he said that. People didn't believe he said it. I showed it to them. They didn't believe he said it. Oh, that's fake. How's that fake? His words were moving with it, or his lips were moving with the exact words coming out of his mouth. Now to get back to Bolton, because there's so much to talk about. Bolton transcripts or excerpts are released through the New York Times. You know, a leak. We get a lot of those right when things are about to conclude, and then it drags it out. And we're wondering, how did this leak get out? Because the book's not out yet. How did this leak, if it's true, because it could be salacious. Remember, we had leaks on the phone call, and they weren't even close to being right. Then we find out that one of the people who vets books that are going to be released by former White House and security advisors, people inside the government, they got to check these books that make sure that certain details aren't classified. Well, guess what? Looks like that guy is Colonel Vindman's brother. Colonel Vindman, Alexander Vindman. He was one of the people that testified in the House hearings. After further research, I'd like to bring this, because it really hasn't been thoroughly examined by the mainstream media, so I'm going to do it here. Colonel Vindman was born July 6th, 1975, so he's 44 right now. You know where he was born? Kiev, Ukraine. Yes, his family changed their name when they come here. They actually have a Russian name. He has an identical brother, Evgeny. They were born to a Jewish family inside, now get this, the Ukraine Soviet Socialist Republic, which was the Soviet Union. So Vindman is a Russian, Ukrainian Russian, but he's a Russian. Can anyone say connections to the Soviet Union? Connections to Russia? Connections to Soviet Russia? And how is this guy, who by all intents and purposes, his degrees are in art, how is he part of such an important staff that deals with Ukraine? How is he part of the security staff there? He was born in the USSR when they owned all that. So his family has Soviet backgrounds. And let me tell you, it's hard to find out what daddy was. I'm telling you that. It is hard to find out what daddy is, because that doesn't seem to be readily available. So we have that. So John Bolton, who's a disgruntled worker, fired by the president, has a book coming out. Excerpts from the book are released by the New York Times, very much how the same things that happened during the Kavanaugh hearing. And now Linguini-spied Republicans are going to possibly ask for more witnesses. As if we need more witnesses. The case laid out by the Democrats was nuked on Saturday, was then finished off on Monday, and then on Tuesday, they concluded their defense early. Now, some people might say because they didn't have a defense. Oh, no. They concluded it early because they nuked everything. They didn't need to keep repeating and repeating and repeating to let it sink in your brain. They're not trying to brainwash you, from what I can tell. They went out there, did their thing, and let the senators get out of there, because the senators have been tied up for over a week now, doing very little else besides sitting in the chambers there, listening to people talk. Hours upon hours of basic lecturing. Well, that gets boring, and I can see why the Trump team, they laid out their case. They eviscerated the Democrats' position. The whole case is, in my opinion, nuked. So I can see why they ended early. But now we're going to the question and answer phase. And that should be very interesting. Because I'd like to see the Trump team ask specific questions of Mr. Adam Schiff, the guy who knew the whistleblower, who talked to the whistleblower before the whistleblower statement came out, who set up the process. That has come out, folks. So if you're telling me that's not corrupt, that the president, Adam Schiff, had contact with the whistleblower and coached him on how to put the complaint together, or her, but from what we can tell, it's a him, who has backgrounds. The whistleblower, who we've kind of got his name, has a background in, the Bidens. The Democrat Party. The Trump the Obama administration. But why the hell didn't Trump just clean house when he first got in there? Because that's a problem. On the other hand, why the hell didn't Trump do his diligence, knowing he was going to clean the swamp, knowing he should have known that the swamp didn't want to be cleaned out? These are people that it's their livelihood to screw the American people. And you're coming in telling them, I'm going to throw you out. Well, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to fight right to the last bit. Now, as we're closing out this little bit of segment here before we head on to our final segment, and I know I've covered the impeachment in nauseum. I'm sorry. But we need somebody to give an objective view of this whole thing, not based by any mainstream malpractice media bias, no Republican bias, who's not affiliated with any party. I don't have a pro-Trump stance, and I don't have an anti-Trump stance. But in my opinion, the Dems overstated the case on Ukraine, and they left this door wide open to go after the Bidens. Now, this is a move, in my opinion, to throw both Trump and Biden under the bus. So their most extreme candidates have a chance to win. Because if you remove Trump and then he can't be on the ballot for whatever reason, who is going to be the Republican candidate then? Is it going to be Pence? Do you think Pence can win? You see, this is their way of weakening the opposition. Why is it that the talking heads on the Republican side aren't urging their followers to call these linguini-spined Republican senators and the Democrat presidential candidates that are senators that will be voting on taking out their political rival? Why are people calling them? Calling the Republicans and telling them to hold steady, and calling the Democrats, the four in particular, to recuse themselves from the vote. They're so desperate they're going to do something completely hypocritical just so they can take out their opposition, because they know Donald Trump is going to wipe the floor with them. And I want to tell you something. I listen to a lot of radio, a lot of talk shows out there. And I have to give credit where credit is due. Rush Limbaugh, when all this stuff came out, when all this stuff began to happen, he said, this isn't a move just to take out Trump. This is a move to take out the Bidens. It is bore out that way. Because why would the Democrats invoke Biden's name and Ukraine so often in defending their position that they would leave the door open for the Republicans to nuke Biden completely, as Pam Bondi did on Monday? And if you have not seen that video of her testimony or of her presentation on Monday, go look it up, because it is powerful. It is devastating to the Bidens. And maybe that was the point, that the Democrats wanted him gone because he was the front runner. And they're really, in all honesty, they're really so far left of the mainstream that Biden isn't left enough for them. We're going to take a quick break, folks, and then we'll hit other subjects instead of impeachment right after this.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em.
Because the John LeBang Show will be right back.
After this.
That's guaranteed. Yes.
Absolute Skin and Body Care, located in Livonia, Michigan. If you're in need of laser hair removal, skin care, laser tattoo removal, or laser hair regrowth, call Absolute Skin and Body Care. They're located at 37625 Ann Arbor Road, Suite 105 in Livonia, Michigan. Their phone number is 248-533-0448. Absolute Skin and Body Care. Give them a call.
You're listening to the John LeBang Show.
It's huge. Now I got to tweet about it. Well, now we've got Hillary. She's weighing in, of course, and she feels the urge to run against Trump, and she thinks she could win again. Well, her party doesn't have much right now, and maybe they're going to put makeup on her and drag her back out in her walker. And she doubles down on top of it of the criticism of Bernie. Don't you see, ladies and gentlemen, what's happening? You may not like Bernie, and you may not like Trump, but they are the outsiders in the swamp for the most part. I mean, Bernie has his connections, but the party is trying to push him off to the side. I think they want Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas herself, the lady who lied about having Indian. Let's not say lied, exaggerated her Native American heritage, because you say Indian, people get upset. Her Native American heritage to get her into college and to furthermore bore out her career. Because if she doesn't go to college on that false pretense, that over-exaggerated genetic trait, she probably wouldn't even be where she is right now. But Hillary thinks she's ready to run again, or is considering it, when there's nothing else there. You got Bloomberg out there. He's putting his hat in because he sees there's nothing out there on the Democrat side. But I can tell you right now, ladies and gentlemen, with no reserve, Hillary couldn't win against a wet paper bag. That's my opinion. She believes Trump broke his promises, and the failed actions of his current administration should ensure the Democrats have a path to victory. Hillary, you've debated him. You know what his promises are. What did he promise, ladies and gentlemen? He promises lower taxes. Well, he gave corporations that. He promised a better economy. Well, that's boring out. He promised to try to get us out of entanglements in the Middle East. And outside of a couple people he's wasted surgically, he's been trying to do that. In fact, he's trying to get us out of Syria and all that stuff. The one thing he might have failed at was the elimination of Obamacare. Is that what you're talking about, Hillary? Do you now favor eliminating Obamacare? That's an interesting point, because technically that is the major issue that Trump has not been able to accomplish. He's found a way to get the border wall started. It might have been through, I don't like using the national emergency for that, but when you had no help from the Democrats, you got to do something, right? Trump's getting stuff done. The trade deals. He promised he'd fix the trade deals. So, Hillary, what are you talking about? Please reply. You can just do it on Twitter. You don't have to call me, because I know you're too big to call me. I'm a nobody. Just Twitter me. Say, what has he done that has broken his promises outside of Obamacare? And we'll find out about the mandate. But outside of Obamacare, he's pretty much been in line with what his campaign promises were. And then the media, because they know there's nothing to really discuss. There's a news item that Mitt Romney drank chocolate milk during the Senate proceedings, not out of a glass, but out of a bottle. And apparently that's breaking the rules, which are ridiculous rules by the House, or the Senate. They can only have water and milk, okay, and it has to be in glasses, little glass bottle. So I guess, is that to prevent sponsorships of some sort? I don't know. Well, whatever. That is a news story because the mainstream media is running out of things, bad things to say. I did promise that we'd get to the Ukrainian timeline, but Pam Bondi really handled that. So we're going to table that for the moment because we only have about 8-9 minutes left in the show. And I want to get to some other subjects while we're here. First of all, drag queens are going to make a historic debut during the Super Bowl. That's going to be a great time. Because not only do we need drag queens telling stories in California to little kids, we need them to be spotlighted on the big screen during the big game. Then we have goalie Ed Belfour is arrested again. He was hammered inside of a hotel room. This guy has had a history of over-intoxication. And sometimes when your career is over as a hockey player or as a sports figure or in any facet of industry, and there's not much to do, you turn to substances like that to pass your time. And so he was arrested again. You know, he famously offered, it was a few years ago, maybe a little more than a few years ago, he famously offered a cop $1 billion if he let him go. He got busted for that. See, that's a joke, right? Ed Belfour doesn't have $1 billion. So that, in my opinion, can't be considered a bribe. That was more of just telling the cop to screw off. Because Ed Belfour for sure doesn't have $1 billion. I haven't even checked his financials. I don't care. But I can guarantee you he has not $1 million or $1 billion anywhere. Then we have NASA. They reveal a space home for the first ISS tourists will enjoy a large window so they can watch everything. Under new rules, companies can now take private astronauts to the International Space Station for up to 30 days. The space habitat will be capable of housing 8 crew members, each with their own nest-like cabin. The living module also promises super fast communications back to Earth and an extraordinary view of the Earth because of this big giant window. So if you've got yourself a couple $1 million and you know of a private company that will give you a nice trip up to the International Space Station, and I wish I had the money because even though I'm not a fan of flying or any of that, and I would probably crap my pants. I'm not a fan. It would answer a lot of questions for me in particular if I was able to go up there and view the Earth and everything as it is. Then I could report back to the flat earthers and tell them if it was true or not. If the world is round or not. So all you flat earthers out there, let's find out. Send me a bunch of money and I'll go up there for you and I'll prove the case one way or the other. How's that? Now let's get into the Kobe Bryant issue. Because it's been a major story that has overshadowed, ironically, as it happened, as the Trump defense team was making their case, it overshadowed their entire case. And there's Also, the YouTubers who think this was some kind of strange occurrence. Well, let's just go over what we know. Early Sunday morning, Kobe Bryant was in a tragic crash. He was with his... Now listen carefully, folks, because many listeners of the John Lebang Show who have been around for many years might be able to clue in on something here. He had a 13-year-old daughter, Gigi. The transportation was a S-76 Sikorsky, however you pronounce it. That was the vehicle that was transporting them. It's odd that 7 and 6 equal 13, but hey, let's continue. The helicopter crashed into a hillside around 9:30 a.m. Firefighters responded to the 911 call at 9:47. 47, that's 11. Weird. 9 people perished on board. So while everybody was upset over the Kobe Bryant and they ignored or they were distracted from the Trump hearing, some very interesting numbers and details come out about the Kobe Bryant helicopter crash. And why are so many people, and this bothers me, this guy was accused of raping people, but he's a legend. And if it's Bill Cosby, oh, he's a bad guy. But if it's a basketball star, he's free from scrutinization. Then we have Diddy over there at the Grammys. He was complaining that black music has never been respected at the Grammys. Really? Okay. He really means hip-hop. Because plenty of black artists have won awards there. Plenty. In fact, I bet you it's a big portion. It's not 2 or 3%. I'm thinking it's probably 30 to 40%. It's hip-hop, bro, that's not respected. And that's because hip-hop is not music. All right? You don't use real instruments. Everything is computer-generated, even the drum beats. And there may be an exception here and there. I'm speaking as a whole. And you guys don't sing. You just talk over the beats. And when you do sing, you're out of key. Like the fat chick who sang that popular song. She used to be from Detroit. It was like the biggest hit of the year or something. She can't sing, but whatever. You wanted her to win something, probably. Then let's talk. We got a minute here, so let's talk on the coronavirus. It has killed at least 100 patients, according to official reports, and infected more than 4,500 people across China alone. Reported cases are rising every day, more than 60% in the last 24 hours alone. On a side note, I went out to see if I could find some surgical masks, and in my area, they're all gone. People are starting to already prepare for something that might be coming. And it's probably a good idea. Over to CNN, Don Lemon and his guests mock Trump supporters as uneducated and stupid. Well, or illiterate. But that's pretty much stupid. Because they're elitist, right? And anybody who doesn't believe CNN or any of those people on CNN, we're all dumb. Weinstein case is happening as well. Well, some interesting things happened the other day. One of the accusers stated that Weinstein had forcibly performed oral sex on her in 2006. So he performed oral sex on her, and she didn't try to run away or anything. With that being said, folks, we got to get on out of here. Thank you for tuning in. I'm signing out now from the Banger Studios.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.